The Alaska Purchase of 1867 was a significant event that transformed the geopolitical map of North America. It ended Russia's attempts to colonize and trade along the Pacific coast and enabled the United States to expand its territory and influence in the Asia-Pacific region. Russia had been interested in Alaska since 1725, when Tsar Peter the Great sent Vitus Bering to explore its shores. Alaska was rich in natural resources and sparsely populated, but Russia lacked the funds and the force to maintain a large presence there. Only about 400 Russians ever settled in Alaska, and Russia's defeat in the Crimean War diminished its ambitions in the region. The Alaska Purchase was not just a bargain deal, but a strategic move that had lasting consequences. It allowed the United States to acquire a vast land for $7.2 million, or about 2 cents per acre. It also paved the way for American expansionism and dominance in the 19th and 20th centuries. Recently, however, some rumors have circulated that Russia, led by President Vladimir Putin, wants to take back Alaska. Amid the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, a viral social media post claimed that Putin had signed a decree declaring the 1867 sale of Alaska illegal. A Ukrainian user named Igor Sushko tweeted, "Putin signed an order insinuating the sale of Alaska to the United States in 1867 was illegitimate." Well, I think I can speak for all of us in the US government to say that certainly he's not getting it back, State Department Principal Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel said, eliciting laughter from his audience.
Let me just understand that he signed something today that said the sale of Alaska is illegitimate.
Right.
Well, I think I speak for all of us in the U.S. government to say that certainly he is not getting it back. Sorry, I'll come back to you later.
The Institute for the Study of War noted that the exact parameters of what constitutes current or historical Russia property are unclear. The Kremlin may use the protection of its claimed property in countries outside of its internationally recognized borders to forward soft power mechanisms in post-Soviet and neighboring states, ultimately aimed at internal destabilization, the Institute wrote in an analysis of the Russian offensive campaign. It cited a Telegram post from a military blogger who suggested that Russia could start enforcing the law in Alaska and parts of Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. Russia's claim to Alaska is baseless, and the notion of reclaiming it is unrealistic and ridiculous. The difficulties of an invasion, given the icy conditions in the Bering Strait and the absence of roads, make it impossible. The humorous tone of this theory highlights its absurdity, emphasizing that imagining a Russian invasion is embarrassing. Ultimately, the message is clear. Russia is not going to invade Alaska, and focusing on such fantasies distracts from the real and serious global issues affecting people in conflict zones. The United States of America is a nation that was born out of a struggle for freedom and self-determination. In the 18th century, 13 British colonies in North America rebelled against the oppressive policies and taxes imposed by the British Crown. They declared their independence on July 4, 1776, and fought a war against Britain that lasted until 1783. The Declaration of Independence, the document that announced their separation, stated that all men are created equal and have certain unalienable rights such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, achieving independence was not the end of the American story. The new nation faced many challenges and opportunities in its quest to secure its borders, establish its government, and expand its territory. One of the most important and controversial issues that the United States had to deal with was the acquisition and settlement of new lands. The original 13 states were located along the Atlantic coast, but the Americans had a vision of a continental nation stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They pursued this vision through various means, such as exploration, diplomacy, war, and purchase. Some of the most notable examples of territorial expansion are the Louisiana Purchase of 1803, which doubled the size of the nation, the Texas annexation of 1845, which sparked a war with Mexico, the Oregon Treaty of 1846, which settled a dispute with Britain, and the Alaska Purchase of 1867, which ended Russia's presence in North America. The Alaska Purchase transformed the geopolitical map of North America. It ended Russia's attempts to colonize and trade along the Pacific coast and enabled the United States to expand its territory and influence in the Asia-Pacific region. The United States has a clear edge over Russia in terms of military might. The U.S. defense budget for 2023 was $816.7 billion. The U.S. defense budget for 2023 was the largest in history. On the other hand, Russia's defense budget for 2023 was estimated at $84 billion. The U.S. defense budget for 2023 was about 10 times larger than Russia's defense budget. This huge financial difference highlights the enormous gap in military resources between the two countries. Moreover, when comparing the scale and quality of their respective armed forces, the difference becomes even more evident. The United States has a technologically advanced and globally deployed military with a large network of bases, a strong navy, and a superior air force. In contrast, Russia's military, while still impressive, operates on a more regional level with less global presence. Considering the logistical and strategic factors, invading Alaska would be very difficult for Russia. The Bering Strait, the narrow waterway that separates Russia and Alaska, is frozen with sea ice for a large part of the year, creating a formidable obstacle to maritime movement. Furthermore, the absence of infrastructure and roads in the isolated western regions of Alaska within 500 miles of the coast adds to the logistical problems of any possible invasion. Therefore, examining the military strengths and logistical issues is essential to understand the possibility of Putin reclaiming Alaska. The hypothetical scenario of Vladimir Putin trying to reclaim Alaska from the United States requires not only a military analysis, but also a careful examination of the economic and political consequences that would inevitably follow such a daring move. This exploration looks into the possible fallout using a detailed assessment of the harsh economic sanctions and international criticism that would probably hit Russia in the case of an aggressive move. On the international stage, the impact of a Russian attempt to retake Alaska would be immense. Economically, Russia would face severe sanctions from the global community, especially led by the United States and its allies. In recent years, economic sanctions have shown to be effective tools of pressure in international relations. As of 2023, Russia's GDP was expected to be around $1.9 trillion. However, the imposition of extensive economic sanctions could damage Russia's financial systems, with potentially significant shrinkage. The international community's reaction to such aggression would not be limited to economic actions alone. Diplomatically, Russia would likely face isolation and condemnation. Looking inward, the internal dynamics within Russia would also be deeply affected. The diversion of substantial resources towards a military endeavor, along with the economic repercussions of international sanctions, could lead to internal dissatisfaction. According to various reports, Russia has faced social and political unrest in response to economic difficulties and perceived government mismanagement. Any move seen as endangering the well-being of the population could worsen existing tensions, potentially triggering protests, opposition movements, and internal conflict. The possibility of Putin taking back Alaska from the US involves not only military, economic, and political issues, but also legal and historical ones. related to the Alaska Purchase Treaty. The Alaska Purchase Treaty, signed in 1867, enabled the transfer of Alaska from Russia to the US for $7.2 million. Legally, this deal was a valid contract between the two countries, fully acknowledged by international law. The treaty not only showed the sovereign intention of the parties, but also passed the examination of international legal norms of the time. The fact that this deal has lasted for so long confirms its legal soundness and acceptance in the world. To understand the legal subtleties better, one must consider the principles of international law that regulate territorial changes and treaties. The Alaska Purchase Treaty followed these principles, such as the free will of the parties, lack of coercion, and mutual agreement. These factors enhance the legal position of the treaty and reduce the chance of any modern claims against its validity. Historically, various stories might emerge to justify a possible reclamation attempt, but a careful review often shows inherent weaknesses. Claims of historical wrong or disagreements over the validity of the sale need to be assessed critically. By checking historical documents, it becomes clear that the Alaska Purchase was not only a smart move by Russia, but also a deal made with a full awareness of the legal implications. In refuting historical arguments, it is crucial to depend on solid facts and figures. The financial aspect of the deal, with the US paying $7.2 million, demonstrates the intentional and economically driven nature of the sale. This large amount, when adjusted for inflation, further emphasizes the importance and legitimacy of the deal from both a historical and legal perspective. Let us look closely at the US response and deterrence measures that are in place. This analysis explores the strong US commitment to protecting Alaska, based on historical doctrines like the Monroe Doctrine and various military agreements that show the nation's devotion to preserving its territorial sovereignty. Historically, the United States has shown a firm commitment to protecting its territories, as shown by the Monroe Doctrine. This policy, established in the early 1800s, stated the US position against any external meddling or colonization in the Americas. While the Monroe Doctrine mainly aimed to stop European interference, its principles have been applied to protecting all US territories, including Alaska. This commitment is strengthened by various military pacts, such as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and bilateral deals with neighboring countries, creating collective defense obligations. Focusing on Alaska specifically, the US has a powerful military presence in the area.
The 11th Airborne Division, welcome home to Alaska.
According to the US Department of Defense, Alaska has important military bases, including Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson and Eielson Air Force Base, which have advanced aircraft, missile defense systems, and a large troop presence. The importance of these bases is increased by their strategic location, which allows for quick response capabilities and improves the nation's overall defense position in the Arctic region. The defensive abilities deployed in Alaska are not only limited to ground forces. The United States Northern Command plays a key role in managing the defense of Alaska, coordinating efforts across different branches of the military. With advanced radar systems, missile defense installations, and a well-prepared fleet, the US military in Alaska has the means to deter and respond efficiently to potential threats. For example, the ground-based mid-course defense system, which can intercept incoming ballistic missiles, is a vital part of Alaska's defensive structure. The issue of Putin taking back Alaska from the US goes beyond simple military, economic, and geopolitical factors. To understand the complexities of this scenario, one must look into the motivations that might fuel the revived talk about Alaska. By examining these motivations, we seek to uncover the underlying factors that may affect such talk and reveal whether they indicate a real threat or serve other geopolitical purposes. The talk about Alaska could be driven by domestic political factors, serving as a tool for positioning and shaping public opinion. To comprehend this, it becomes essential to look at the domestic political situation in Russia, including factors such as presidential approval ratings, geopolitical aspirations, and the pursuit of a strong national image.
In Russia, dozens of protesters have been arrested after clashes with riot police in the central region of Bashkortostan.
The mounting protests in Russia over the death in prison of opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
Also, the use of historical stories emerges as a powerful instrument in shaping nationalist agendas. Putin, like many leaders, may use historical claims as a way to rally public support, create a sense of national pride, and strengthen power.
На своей земле. Это первые строчки основного закона России, Конституции. И каждое слово наполнено глубоким смыслом, имеет огромное значение. На своей земле, объединенной общей судьбой, так наверняка думали, и этим руководствовались люди, когда шли на...
Historical stories, carefully chosen and selectively shown, can be useful in affecting public perception and gaining support for geopolitical moves. To highlight the motivations behind the talk, we will examine cases where discussions about Alaska match with wider geopolitical objectives. This may involve using the historical link between Russia and Alaska to assert influence in negotiations on other fronts, either regionally or globally. By looking at historical cases where nations used similar tactics, we can gain insights into the potential strategic value of revisiting territorial claims. Understanding the motivations requires a detailed examination of Russia's geopolitical position, economic difficulties, and global ambitions. The Alaska Purchase, made official by a treaty, reflects a sovereign choice made in a particular historical setting. Any talk about taking back Alaska requires a careful look at the ethical aspects of the sovereignty of nations and the respect for international agreements. Revisiting such scenarios brings up questions about the validity of historical deals and the potential trouble it could cause for modern diplomatic relations. The moral issues go beyond legal structures, looking into the impact on local people and the recognition of the rights and identities of individuals living in the affected areas. The ethical perspective makes us think about the consequences of geopolitical choices on communities and individuals, stressing the importance of diplomacy and conflict resolution to deal with historical complaints without turning to territorial changes. As we go through this hypothetical exploration, it becomes clear that the Arctic region, with its geopolitical importance, needs a deeper understanding. Promoting more research is vital to uncover the complexities of the Arctic's geopolitical situation, which is influenced by economic, environmental, and political factors. The Arctic is thought to have huge untapped resources. According to the US Geological Survey, the region has about 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and 30% of its undiscovered natural gas. The possible economic benefits, along with the strategic importance of the region, highlight the need for ongoing research and critical thinking. The effect of climate change adds to the complexities. Melting ice caps create new opportunities for resource extraction, shipping routes, and territorial claims.
Still, the U.S. and Russian relations have a lot of issues accumulated that require the highest level meeting. And I hope that our meeting will be productive.
Well, thank you. As I said outside, I think it's always better to meet face to face.
While exploring future conflicts and possible scenarios that could shape the Arctic region, it is important to look into non-military ways that Russia might use to gain influence. From economic partnerships to territorial disputes, these ways show the subtle dynamics that affect geopolitical interactions. Also, the discussion briefly mentions the potential impact of climate change on the Arctic, stressing how environmental changes could increase resource wealth and spark more geopolitical competition in the region. Beyond the usual area of military actions, Russia has a range of non-military ways to gain influence in the Arctic region. One important way involves economic partnerships, where Russia may strategically take part in cooperation, investments, and trade deals to strengthen its position. With the Arctic having huge untapped resources, including large amounts of oil and natural gas, economic partnerships could be used as tools for diplomatic influence and regional control. Territorial disputes, though they could be controversial, are another way that Russia might use to gain influence. By taking part in diplomatic moves and legal challenges, Russia could claim its rights over certain Arctic territories, creating geopolitical conflicts without using direct military force. This way matches with wider strategies aimed at getting access to the region's resource-rich areas and taking control over important shipping routes. In conclusion, the recent rumors of Russia reclaiming Alaska under Putin's leadership have stirred debate. The feasibility, legal grounds, and practicalities of such a move remain highly questionable. Analysing military strength, economic repercussions, and historical validity alongside ethical considerations, it's evident that any attempt to reclaim Alaska would face insurmountable challenges and provoke severe international backlash. Looking ahead, understanding the complexities of Arctic geopolitics, including non-military strategies and the impact of climate change, is essential for navigating future tensions and fostering cooperation in the region.